Right. As Tammy's been reporting all week, the submersible story from OceanGate at the Titanic wreck. This has been the story. All right? And now a story has to really break through nowadays to just capture everyone's attention. This was one of them, and it came to a tragic end yesterday. I don't know how shocking this was for people, because when it hit me, it wasn't a shocking feeling. I think most people assumed the worst, but to hear it, obviously, it affected a lot of people. The 5 folks aboard the Titan did not make it. They called it a catastrophic implosion. The U.S. Coast Guard announced it yesterday. Debris was found roughly 500 meters from the actual wreck of the Titanic, which is unbelievable. Hours later, it was confirmed the debris was consistent with an implosion, not an explosion, an implosion. Families of the crew of the Titan have been notified, and we're also learning. The Wall Street Journal is currently reporting that U.S. Navy officials picked up an anomaly on Sunday that was likely the implosion, but they didn't know at all what it was at the time. Could be anything, because the one thing we're learning here is there's a lot of sounds that come out of the ocean all the time. But when you do the math on it, now it feels like that's what it was. Investigations obviously are underway. Rescue efforts are underway to retrieve as much as humanly possible. Tam, I want to start with you here, because I think one of the talking points coming off this is a lot of people are interested at why there was this much interest. A lot of people are wondering, and I think it's a valid question, why this captivated so many people's attention. Where do you go first with that?
Well, we were talking about this earlier this week, because all week long, like if you even put it on CNN, it is the coverage wall to wall. And I agree, it's the rescue. We've seen this before with other big rescues. The Chilean miners, of course, come to mind right away. The soccer team in the Philippines as well. We were just engrossed in this because it's happening in real time, and you want to see what comes out of it, and you hope for the good news. Unfortunately, in this case, we didn't get that.
For sure.
Yeah, I think it's just something we don't hear every day. I mean, clearly this has been going on for a few years, but the fact that, it went missing, and it's like, okay, well, there's a rescue mission underway. And I mean, just looking at it, you think with that kind of investment into an excursion, so to speak, it would be more regulated or something. That's where it just doesn't quite meet up. When we even saw footage of, they're using like essentially a Game Boy controller.
Video game joystick.
To
$30.
To control the whole entire thing. I'm just like, I don't know. There's something that doesn't quite match up to me. Yeah. And that's where there's a big question mark.
Yeah, I think there's a lot here. I think the fact that it was a lot of rich people has added a layer to this, because and listen, if you've been on social media over the last week, you've seen the example a lot of how migrants around the world are risking their lives constantly to get out of situations that are hopeless, and you see accidents at sea all the time, and the attention for those incidents don't match what we've seen here. I think, to me, another aspect of this is because we're learning more about OceanGate, the company, and some of the corners that were cut. Like they in their pamphlets, they say they worked with Boeing on this. Boeing knows nothing about this project. So at its core, again, we're talking about a private company looking to make money, and I don't think we should confuse that with anything from the scientific community or any. When you have privatization, when you have capitalism like that, at $250,000 a pop, corners will be cut. I guarantee you. I don't care what the company says. I don't care. I guess, and the last part for me is if a family member said to me, if one of my brothers said to me, I have 2 brothers, if they said to me, I'm going down to see the Titanic wreck in one of these things, I'd physically fight them.
Yeah.
I'd physically fight them. And I know there's 2 types of human beings. There's very people like me, who don't take a ton of risk. And there's people who all they want to do is take that risk. And all I could think of all week watching this is life is very precious, man. Life, I don't understand the logic of I have to push this as far as humanly. This was not, they weren't excavating. And we give our condolences to all the families. But this was not some scientific trek. They were taking selfies where DiCaprio was, in theory. Like, that's what this was. So I think it's just such a horrific shame that this is how that would end for people when really it didn't have to. And I've had a hard time all week processing that. And that's where I think another part of this curiosity comes from. Why?
Right.
Why do you have to push it to that point where more people have been to space than in that wreck? And I think when you combine all those things, the economic disparity, I think that's why it hit with so many people. And unfortunately, it ended the way it was. But to all the people who went into that area looking for them, Canadian members of the Coast Guard and Americans, shout out to them, because that was not easy. That was not easy.